Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where we say, wow, this could either be a really great thing for America, or it could be yet more crony capitalism. Which do you think it's gonna be? I don't know. Honestly, I'm not really sure how I side on this. So one of the big things going on right now with the trade war with China is this whole fight over rare earths minerals, right? So for a lot of the products that we have, the technology products that we have, they use these minerals called rare earths for everything for magnets and batteries and all that kind of stuff. And basically China, over the past couple of decades, has cornered the market in rare earths. Now, to be clear, when we say China cornered the market in rare earths, part of the issue is that China has expanded their rare earth capacity at the exact same time we've reduced our rare earth capacity. So obviously, China man bad, right? And this has been one of my frustrations with so many of these things. So we've known about this rare earth issue, I do believe, for about 20 years. And one of the problems we have in the United States is we have so many of these environmental laws. Now, environmental laws in general are good, but we have so many environmental laws. One of the issues that comes up is when you go to create a new mine or do a lot of industrial processes, you run into the issue of you just can't make those projects fit within the environmental scheme that we currently have. And so what happens is old mines close down. China does not care about many of these things, so they spin up their own mines and processing centers, and then all of a sudden they're doing all the processing, they're doing all of the mining, and we are simply a customer from them. We've had this real issue of greenwashing. Again, I mean, this has been well known for 25 years. Naomi Klein talked about it decades ago. And one of the big issues that's come up is you have a lot of these American companies that are supposed to fit within these environmental mandates, right? You can't put so much lead in the water, you can do all these things, right? The issue is in order to produce a lot of the goods that we use, there are environmental consequences for it, right? It does create poisons and that type of thing. And so we could have a society where we say, okay, we know this process does create poison, does create pollution, that type of deal. How can we create factory districts in the United States that would mitigate the issue, right? If you're worried about contaminating the groundwater, right, wherever the groundwater table is, what if we put these factories in Arizona where you don't have to worry about the water table so much, right? What if we put it in New Mexico or something? So, okay, it spews some of this stuff. Even if it does get on the ground, it's not going to affect the water table because the water table is so far down, it'll be fine, right? The issue is we haven't done that. We haven't invested enough into environmental technologies. We haven't invested enough into simply design on where these facilities should be, so on and so forth. And so what a lot of these major manufacturers did is they greenwashed. And what that means is basically they decided to go after the higher value products and services that they could offer, and then they sold off the lower value products and services that were more polluting to places like China, and then simply bought the inputs, right? So Dow Chemical can come out and they can be like, we are now an eco company. But the weird part is the level of pollution, the amount of pollution that's required in order to create their finished product has not changed at all. They simply sold off the division that created so much pollution. That division went to China. And now that division is in China, polluting the shit out of China. But Dow can say, we are environmental stewards, which is technically correct and also completely and utter horse crap. And I think this is going to be a big issue going forward, especially with Trump's policies and mandates. It goes back to that question of what is the real plan? What is the real strategy? When we talk about reindustrializing the United States, functionally, how are we going to do this? I've talked about this before with so many of the industrial areas in our cities, right? So if you go to Baltimore now, much of Baltimore is a hellhole, but if you go down by the water, man, there's multi-million-dollar condos, right? Multi-million-dollar condos and lofts and coffee shops and the whole 9 yards. So to a lot of people, that seems good. Look, Eli, that's economic development. Yeah, but that's where the factories were. What happens if you try to bring factories back to the United States, but all the land where we used to have factories now has multi-million-dollar condos, right? I've talked about that before, right? I had my business in Baltimore, right, when I had it. The building that I had was zoned for light industrial, so I could do light manufacturing work in our building. It's one of the reasons that I bought it, because I wasn't quite sure where we were going to go, and so that was a great thing, right? I could do everything from doing retail sales to soldering motherboards to God knows what. The interesting thing is the person who purchased that building from me split it into 3 condos. Right? So that in light industrial space that could have been used for a small factory is now 3 condos. And so as we think about this going forward, there's going to be that real question of how are we actually going to reintegrate industrialization into the modern American society? And if we don't think about it, then this just turns into crony capitalism. What we're going to be talking about today, right, is there's the rejuvenation of the U.S. industrial sector, or is it crony capitalism? Right? If this is a component, one step in the path of all the things that are going to be required, then that could lead to good things. If this is just Apple throwing a lot of money at a company just to get Trump to shut up, that doesn't really get us anywhere. And these are the things that we really just need to consider, because I don't think it's thought about enough, right? I hear about that from so many people, like, oh, we can't do that manufacturing because it's going to poison whatever. And it's like, well, but we're still taking the goods. Like, this still got produced, right? Oh, okay, so the plastic, the poisons that were created by doing this plastic was no longer done in New York State. This plastic was no longer manufactured in New York State. It's now manufactured in China. Right? That does not reduce the amount of toxins that come out from the production of this thing. It simply changes where the toxins are released. And so the question then becomes, we move the manufacture of this from New York State to China, which means all the pollution is now in China. Does that mean you want to bring all the pollution back to New York State? Right? These are things you got to consider. But anyways, this is kind of curious with the rare earths thing. MP material stock, so this is from CNBC, MP material stock rips 20% higher after a $500 million Apple deal for rare earth magnets, right? So the rare earth material, Apple is coming back to the United States to purchase rare earths in the United States. Why is this newsworthy? Because right, the whole rare earth thing, there isn't a lot of production that's actually done here in the United States. Apple and miner MP Materials announced a $500 million deal Tuesday for rare earth magnets and the development of a recycling facility that will reinforce the iPhone maker's U.S. supply chain. As part of the agreement, Apple will buy rare earth magnets created at the company's facility in Fort Worth, Texas. Both companies will combine on a new rare earth recycling line in Mountain Pass, California. MP Materials plans to start shipping magnets in 2027. Quote, American innovation drives everything we do at Apple, and we're proud to deepen our investment in the U.S. economy. Does American innovation drive everything you do at Apple? I have an interesting book I just read. Sounds a lot more like Chinese innovation drives most of what goes on at Apple. But, hey. Let's see. Said Apple CEO Tim Cook in a press release, quote, rare earth materials are essential for making advanced technology. Yep. And this partnership will help strengthen the supply of these vital materials here in the United States. Is it strengthening the supply, or is it just forcing purchases? That's not necessarily the same thing. Apple said the deal will create dozens of new manufacturing and research and development roles. For years, the U.S. has worked on curbing its reliance on China, which dominates the global rare earth element supply chain. MP Materials operates the only rare earth mine in the United States. And so that is my concern here, right? So there's one mine that basically produces these minerals, these materials here in the United States. And the reason there are not other mines is because of environmental laws and the whole 9 yards. So that's going to be one of the things. Is this going to be the tipping point that spurs us to open more mines and actually be able to truly ramp up our production in the United States? Or is this just simply free money to this company? The weird part, I was just going through this and I was just like, okay, well, this is whatever. Here's where we get to the weird part. Earlier this month, the Department of Defense, U.S. government, Department of Defense, became the largest shareholder in the rare earth miner, buying $400 million in preferred stock to improve rare earth magnet supply on American soil. So the Department of Defense purchased $400 million in equity in this particular company. Publicly traded company. So that's the thing too. Like you see this, and so Apple is putting money into it that helps boost the stock. DoD buys stock that ramps up the value of the stock. Shares of MP Materials have nearly quadrupled since the start of the year, pushing the miner's market capitalization to nearly $10 billion. The stock has nearly doubled over the last month. So the shareholders for MP Materials are doing very, very, very well. No doubt about that. I am curious to know what this is actually going to mean for production of these rare earths here in the United States. I think that's going to be a big question mark. And honestly, it's going to be outside of the MP Materials' hands. I think a lot of it will even be outside Trump's hands, right? Here in the U.S., we have many layers to government. We have the federal government, we have the state governments, and then we have local governments, so county and city and that type of government. You've got the environmental laws. Environmental laws are at every level of our government. Plus, you have the ability to take things to court and have judges make decisions and all that kind of thing. And so if we see this money coming back into rare earths, the question is not necessarily is there demand? It's not even necessarily, can it be done? Is there actually supply in the United States? Because as far as I understand, there is. It's can you turn that supply in the United States into a saleable product for the customers that want it? And that's where we're getting with environmental laws and a lot of that kind of thing. And I think there is a massive question there. And that's one of the things with the United States. We really need to have a conversation. I've talked about this before with the Biden administration. We needed to have a conversation about healthcare policy in the United States with COVID, right? Our healthcare system is fundamentally more broken after COVID than before, which is absolutely idiotic, right? We need to have conversations. When we talk about Ukraine, right? What are we doing in Ukraine? Biden administration was all for, blank checkbook to Ukraine. No, I support Ukraine, but not that much. And then Trump administration, Republicans were pushing back on that. But now Trump is now sending weapons and even offensive weapons to Ukraine. Do you realize we're not having a conversation about Ukraine? In the United States, we are not having an actual conversation about what are our expected end goals for Ukraine. We're either sending weapons or not sending weapons based off of God knows what at this point in time, right? We need to have those conversations to understand where do we as a society want to move. And when we talk about things like reindustrializing the United States, we need to have that conversation. We need to have the conversation of, yes, we are willing to poison the planet in order to produce profit. But that's how where do you think your car comes from? Where do you think the paint comes from? When you're sitting here and you're watching this on your computer screen, how do you think that computer is created? Right? If we believe the internet is a power for democracy or freedom or whatever else for all of humanity, how much of the world are we willing to poison for that freedom? Like that is an actual question that we have to ask. And with so many of these things, it just kind of gets sidestepped and papered over and the rest of it. So yeah, anyways, so this is happening. Yay! Apple is buying more rare earths from the United States. What does that functionally mean? Who the hell knows? Who knows? So what do you think about this? Put your thoughts down below. Give us a thumbs up, a thumbs down, an awesome comment, or a horrible comment. Remember, it's the modern world of YouTube. All that matters is that interaction. And with that, see y'all later.